I wanted to wrap up our series on identity crisis and sort of just bring it all, hopefully, together. And while I was sitting there thinking during the offering, I was thinking about all the people who are home in their pajamas who I just insulted. And I just wanted to, since I insulted you, just remind you to give in the offering electronically before you go any further. I saw something the other day that I want to share with you. It's a graphic because I think it could be easy for someone to say, "Oh, Chris, you're just talking about identity crisis because that's what's going on, and that's what people are talking about." But this is a very real problem in our society. It's not new. In fact, what I'm going to show you is it's incredibly old. It's as old as Genesis chapter 3. So it's not new, but it's unbelievably relevant in its intensity. So I'm going to put a chart up for you. And I think if in the booth they can throw this chart up, it shows U.S. teens with major depression. And if you look on the left side of the chart, 2004, the boys are somewhere near 5%. The girls tend to, or 12 and a half, right? We'll call it 12%. All right, now, before we go through the chart, what's the difference? I'm no expert on this, but what people who are more experts say is that what boys do is they're aggressive. They lash out. Anybody ever seen anybody have any boys? The other day I was managing some 4th and 5th grade boys, and I was in charge of them, and everybody else got the little, Vicky volunteered for the 1st grade girls. You're just like a rock star as soon as you pay attention to them. These guys, you got to wrestle. Who knows what I'm talking about? So the boys, but when things are not settled, they turn their. But this is what the psychologists will tell you, is girls, they turn on themselves, and a lot of their criticism goes towards themselves. So there you have you can see it's a standard difference. So let's go back to the chart. Thank you guys for helping me in the booth. And then you can see there's a trend, and it's kind of sideways until around 2010, 2011, and 2012. And then, of course, it just skyrockets. And, we have problems in our society with young people who are depressed, and all the other complications that go with it, where they're antisocial sometimes, and then they don't work, and it just keeps spiraling. One more time, go to the chart, and I'll explain something to you. Do you know what happened in the year 2010? Vic, can you bring my phone? It's sitting up there somewhere. Is it there? In the year 2010, iPhone 4 came out with a front-facing camera. The selfie. You say, "Chris, this is just a complete coincidence. There's no whatsoever." And you can find out that that's about the time that Instagram came out. It all started getting tied together. And the other day I was watching a teenager hold the phone and was doing this. See it? It wasn't even a girl. That's the thing I don't get. I mean, And I've seen girls do it, and I've seen boys do it. And there's an old fairy tale from the Brothers Grimm, and it says the queen says to the what? Mirror, mirror on the, who's the? Of them all. Turns out she had a front-facing camera. Turns out a lot of the problems that we're having in our society, perhaps, go with me for a minute, are connected to the front-facing camera, which is ultimately connected to the mirror, to the idea that I need to obsess about what I look like. And then, of course, once you put it up on social media, the other thing that started to happen around this time, and there's this massive shift between 2010 and 2015. Prior to that, people had flip phones. Around the time between 2010, 11, and 12, there were some major changes. Front-facing cameras, Instagram, and to note, high-speed data. And all of a sudden, this was ubiquitous. By 2015, 70 to 80% of our teenagers had smartphones. In 2012, we got the like button. Things could now go viral. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? She would say it over and over and over again because she needed validation from this, what? Mirror. Isn't this incredible how old this is? We've needed validation, not just since 2012, not since 1700s from the Brothers Grimm, but since Genesis chapter 3. Eve is swindled by the serpent. She takes the forbidden fruit. She eats. Adam, he eats. And in Genesis chapter 3, verse 7, it says, then the eyes of both of them were what? They're open. Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that the first time they ever opened their physical eyes. What does it mean? It means they became self-conscious. It means they got a front-facing camera. It means they started to obsess about themselves. Self-conscious. Their eyes were open, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. The dawn of self-consciousness. So what I want to do in the last of this series is talk about healthy confidence versus unhealthy self-consciousness. What God wants and designs for you and I is that we are confident, that you know that you are made in the image of God, that God has his hand on your life, that God has a calling and a purpose for your life, that God has a unique way that he has made you. We covered that a couple weeks ago in just very high level, and I think what we'll do is in the new year, we'll do a deep dive on all the unique ways that God has made you, not like everybody else. You don't need to be like everybody else because you need to be the way that God made you. But Adam and Eve then started to see themselves as naked, as vulnerable. They never paid attention before. I remember if you've raised kids, you know that when they're real young, they just run outside with no clothes on. They don't think anything about it. You remember this? And they just they're completely uninhibited. Not only that, physically, but emotionally. They're uninhibited. They're embarrassed. They're free to talk about it. They're free to worry about rejection. But then something starts to happen. We start to become self-conscious. We start to think about, wonder what they think about me. Wonder how I look. I wonder how I look in front of them. And this is not just about physical looks, although there is way too much of that obsession going on. But it's that and a whole lot more. The obsession, how do I look? How do I look in front of them? And they hide. And everything from there, what? Falls apart. Do you see what a big problem this is? This constant searching for validation? And contrast it with confidence. Knowing who you are. Knowing that you're a child of God, knowing that you have a purpose, knowing that you don't have to be like everybody else. I'm telling you, this is an absolute game changer. When you're confident, your mind is good. What do I mean by that? Well, everybody's talking about there's mental health this and mental health. It's constantly a phrase. I never even heard the phrase when I was a kid. But when your mind is good, you believe in God and you believe in yourself and you're calm. You're okay. Confidence helps you in your relationships with other people. You're not always worried. What do they think about me? How do I look? What did I say? Anybody here ever have a dream that you went somewhere and you didn't have your clothes on? It's a very common dream because it's a fear that we have of like being exposed. It's not the physical part. We're afraid of being out there, that someone will know I have some flaws. Someone will know that I don't have it all together. Now look, it's common to all of us, so we can all kind of admit it to some degree. It's not a terrible thing, but it goes too far. Who here has ever had people coming over to your house, and it was for whatever reason, it was last minute, and you found out, oh, the Smiths are coming over, and you started shoving stuff into a closet. And the idea is, I'm exposed. They're going to find out I'm a slob, or they're going to find out I'm not perfect, or whatever it is. And so what the psychologists call this is they call it impression management. And it is very tiring when you always have to manage what's the impression that I am giving to other people. And we've talked about this before, but then it comes out on our social media accounts where it's like, well, I got to take 79 pictures. And what do I have to do? I have to manage so that I look a certain way to other people. I'm not telling you to be a slob like me. I don't own a comb. I don't have one. I've never had a comb in my life. I figure that's why God made my hands like this. I just go like this, and I'm done. So you don't need to go to my level of extreme. But have you understood that some things that have happened in our life, now they own you? I learned in this research that then along came these filters. Not only could you take and select the best, but you could just put a filter on there and give you pouty lips, I guess, if that's the thing. And what confidence does is the opposite. It makes you relax. You ever been in a social situation and you realize that some person is always presenting their resume to the group? They're always having to tell everybody what they've accomplished and instead they don't feel confident. They don't feel excited. And when you're confident, you're calm. Okay, I don't need to tell anybody how wonderful I am to be here. Literally, when you're lacking in confidence and you're self-conscious, you're doing the fig leaves. If you're in a social setting, sometimes your heart rate changes. And what we've what we have done to the young generation it's inexcusable. You say, well, they've done it. Well, look, they're kids. Their brains aren't even developed yet. Let's take some ownership as adults. I don't want them to be on it. Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to give you a chance at the end to put your money where your mouth is. Some actions. I'm going to give you some actions. But these kids are just responding to what's been presented to them. They're a lot less resilient. They can't handle setbacks. The other day I met there was a teenage girl, and she was doing some volunteer work, and I told Vicki, go, look at that kid. So confident. She just stood out from everybody else because she was so confident. She looked at me. She looked me in the eye. She asked me a question about me, like she was interested in me. I can't tell you, I'm around a lot of different people, but the tendency is to put their head down, to duck, to hide, but to, with their head up, very confidently address me as an adult. And just conversationally, I'm like, wow, what confidence was instilled into that kid? And so what I want to do for a few minutes today is talk about how we can rebuild confidence. And this is especially for our kids, but if it helps you, good, then it should help you too. We could all use a little bit more. Because when you're confident, you don't have to be cocky. When you're confident, you don't need to brag. You don't need to do anything. You're okay. And the idea for all the other things that Jesus teaches us to do are second half of life things, which are giving and serving and getting over yourself, getting past yourself. But to get to the second half, you have to have the confidence already built in. Then you're not worried about it anymore. Do you remember when Jesus kneels down in the scene of the Last Supper in John's Gospel, where he kneels down to wash the disciples' feet? Made them all very uncomfortable. Oh, hey, what are you doing here? But the Bible says this, Jesus said he knew where he came from. This is very important. And he knew where he was going. His identity was solid. He didn't need to impress anybody. Hey, could you guys go get me some stuff? Hey, could you guys wash my feet? He was over himself. Now he's free. See? He's free to serve other people. He doesn't need anything added to his resume. He knew where he came from and he knew where he was going. And once you know that, then you're finally free to do and to be what God's put you here to do. And so, think of David. Do you remember David when God came to Samuel and said, I'm going to appoint a new king and go to the house of Jesse. And so he goes to Jesse's house, and he tells Jesse that there's going to be a sacrifice and to bring all of his sons in. He didn't tell Jesse what it was all about, but right away Samuel sees Jesse's sons. There's 7 of them. And right away he's impressed. There's a couple of big, strong ones, and he's thinking, this is the next king. And God whispers to him, Samuel, men look on the outside, but God looks on the what? Inside. That's true. When we see somebody, how they dress, how they walk, how they talk, how they act, we make a judgment. You can act like you're a saint and you don't, but you do. And I do. It's what we do, This guy's this, that gal's that. Whoever here has made a judgment and you were dead wrong. I have all day. It's snowing. Dead wrong. You're like, oh, I thought this person was going to be this, and it turns out they were that. Right? People look on the outside, but God looks at the heart. He tells Samuel, don't look at these men, and you're judging by the wrong thing. And they go through, and Jesse presents all of his sons, and and so he says to Jesse, verse 11, he goes, "Are these all the sons you have? Is this it?" Now, can you imagine being in this family? Talk about an identity crisis. You didn't even get called in. And Jesse says, well, they're still the youngest. They don't even have a name, the youngest. But he's out tending the sheep. And Samuel says, send for him. We won't sit down until he arrives. David doesn't even get called into the lineup. Let me give you what I think are the key things about fixing the identity crisis for you, for your kids, for whoever it applies to. And the place you start here is this. You don't focus on the opinions of other people. You don't worry about the opinions of other people. This, my friends, will set you free. Look here. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter. Listen to me. It only matters if you let it matter to you. It only matters if you let it matter to you. Who here was ever the kid on the playground, and I have my hand up to it, pretty sure, and they were picking teams for kickball? Everybody against the wall. Pick, 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 pick. You're getting nervous. Oh, no. You get to the end, and there you are. You just got a big loser on your forehead. And the other team doesn't even take you. They say, you guys can have Cramer. You remember that? David's not even in the lineup. The prophet goes, is this it? Because he's not getting the yes from God. He's not getting that's the guy. Some people say, oh, that ruined me for life. No, that's not going to, being the last person picked on the playground is not going to ruin you for life. It's going to do something for you if you let it. What needs to happen is you have to let go of what other people think about you. David's father didn't think he was worthy. Later on, we're going to see in the story of David and Goliath, when David comes to the front, the brothers are like, what are you doing up here? Why are you getting involved in this? You don't have any right to be here. His older brother, Eliab, said to him, he hears David asking about the giant, and he gets so mad, it says he burns with anger at David. What are you doing here? It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what your family. It doesn't matter what your friends, I'll put friends in quotes. The freedom in life is when you're finally free. I don't need the approval of other people. I don't need it. Once you get there, you are well on your way. You say, Chris, but how do you do that? I'll just tell you how you do it. You just start. All these guys, they want me to do this, and they think that if I do this, I'm going to be, then you just don't do it. And when that little step, it'll give you just that much resolve, that much confidence, and you'll be so much stronger the next time you feel all that pressure. No. I don't need to do that. The opinions of other people and the validation from people around you will just drag you down. People will drag you to their level. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to get beyond that and say, I'm not going to worry about what everybody else thinks. I'm not going to worry about how they value me or how many likes I get or how many friends I have on Instagram or any of this. I am not going to get my validation from other people. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to talk about social media specifically in a minute, because I think that's a big part of this whole piece. The next thing I will say is this. You do something, anything small to build your inner confidence. You know, David doesn't just jump out there and take on Goliath. But when the moment came when they needed someone brave to stand up to Goliath and everyone was afraid, David raised his hand. And David said, verse 32, he goes, "Let no one lose heart. I'll do it." And they said, "But David, you're too young. You're not able to do this." Again, they're trying to tell you what you can't do. And David's response is, when I was out watching the sheep, we were attacked by a bear, and I took out a bear. And then we were attacked by a lion, and I took out a lion. I think I can handle this guy. This is so important. How do you build confidence in your life? You just have to start with some small wins. Just take care of the sheep. Just do little jobs. Do them the best that you can, and you'll build confidence, and you'll move from this to this to this. This is a big problem that's happening in our world, is that we're not taking these very simple jobs seriously anymore, and then we don't have confidence, and so we get stuck. It doesn't matter what the job is. You just need to do a job and be able to finish the job. Have some pride, or some healthy pride, confidence in yourself, and then you can move on to the next thing that God has for you. The next thing you know, you'll be knocking down giants. One of the problems we have is that people think they're just going to skip the sheep and face the giants. And that's just not how it works. You'll go through a process where you realize, I can handle this, I can handle this. Whether it's handling a difficult conversation, or talking to an adult, or going to the principal's office, or whatever you have to do. The researcher that did this material that I showed you at the beginning, the other part of his research was the problem of over-parenting. Who knew? Now, I probably grew up in the era of under-parenting. Anybody grew up in my era? There was a lot of underparenting. I grew up in the era of come home when some of you grew up in my era too, when the streetlights are on. I grew up under the era of, please sell Chris a pack of cigarettes. Thank you, Bonnie. Run to the store and buy my mom. Does anybody? And it's kind of important, because it doesn't usually come from a bad place. It's like we're trying to take care of, we're trying to do good for him. And he did a lot of research, and this is not my field, but he did a lot of research into over-parenting. Then what it does is it takes confidence away from them. Because if they don't tie their shoes, or they don't do the thing, or climb, or do whatever it is that they have to do, they don't build the confidence to get to the next thing. So hard to do. Is it hard to let your kid fail? That's like the hardest thing. But who here has ever failed and got over it and learned from it and became better because of it? What you're doing inadvertently is you're robbing them. This is the key. You're robbing them of the chance to grow, to step into their identity, to become the person that they're supposed to become. And it's just a part of what they have to go through. Third part, and how we will land this, is you receive your identity from God. You consciously willingly, thoughtfully, you receive it from God. I am God's child. This is what we've been saying through the whole series. I am a child of God. I am not an accident. I didn't think of myself. God thought of me. God put me here. God started my life. God is going to oversee my life. God is the shepherd of my life. And if you believe that, this changes absolutely everything. I'm not worried. I'm not out there searching all the time for my identity. What I'm mostly focused on is doing the thing that God put me here to do. So I'm going to come back to this, and we're going to read about our identity in Christ. But what I'd like to do for a few minutes is give you a challenge to join in some sort of a movement. And this is what we kind of know about how these things work. If you go home today, if you have a 14-year-old, you go, give me your phone. I'm shutting it all down. How many of you are in for a rough afternoon? All right? So that might not work. Fair enough. What if here, let me say this first. A lot of the research, this is so important. A lot of the research now, because they're just getting to it. Now we just have enough time on our belt where they can look back and go, how has this worked for us? They can now study it. And they realize that perhaps not so well. But now we got to, okay, how do we fix it? The genie's out, the toothpaste is out of the, whatever. It's gone. It's there. So now what? But the research they found is this. When they talk to kids, they'll say, would you want to give up does it cause you stress? Yes, it does. It causes me stress. My Instagram account or whatever. Do you want to give it up? No. But then, what if nobody had it in your school? None of your friends had it. Would that be better? And what they're finding is the answer is yes. I would give it up if everybody gave it up. Not only would I, but I think my life would probably be a lot better. Do you get where I'm at? It's sort of like someone gave the example. It's like, but it has to be collective action. So if a bunch of fishermen say, hey, we've overfished this area, and now all of our livelihoods are going to go down, and then they make an agreement like, well, let's fish it less. And, 3 of the guys fish it less, 7 of the guys keep fishing. The 3 guys, what? They just go out of business. But if they all do it together, and they collectively do, you see what I'm saying? By the collective action. And you're like, yeah, Chris, no duh, but how are we going to do that? Well, I don't know. But we should start. One of the things I told the youth ministry is like, when the kids go in the youth ministry for 1 hour, you get a cell phone rack and you put your cell phone on the rack. And they had some bumps and bruises, and then all of a sudden they got through it and they're okay and they're happy. And they did it. And then we did youth camp, and we said, everybody, your cell phone's staying here. Tell your mom and dad to call Pastor Chris if they're mad. It's staying here. Everybody had a great week at camp. Not stressed, not worried. Who here has ever been any public place, and there's people that you could just be making a silly comment to or asking them about their, where are you from? We always start with the weather. And then, but where are you from? A little small talk. And it's completely diminished in our society because what does everybody do? And you're kind of, do you feel like me? Like, I feel like I would be rude if I was the one person going, hey, how's everybody doing? Do you feel like me? So it has to be a collective movement. It has to say, this has not helped us. So this guy was proposing some things, and I thought, you know what? I want to be specific in proposing. And what if we joined the movement? Movement number one. By the way, fair enough, Charlie's 6. So easy for you to give a sermon. You don't know what you're talking about. Fair enough. Fire away the arrows, okay? I haven't been there. That's fair enough. But I could just sit down and put my head in the ground too. Or I can join some movements, join some things of people that are thinking forward and take them for what they're worth. No smartphone before high school. No smartphone before high school. This is a broader movement than me, so there's no Bible verse. It's not in the 10 Commandments. We got to make our way here. But if it became commonplace, no smartphone before high school. Oh, my kid's going to need me. Oh, sure. How did we survive? It's called a flip phone if you're that desperate. No smartphone before high school. And like I said, you guys can email me, you can call me on it because I may cave and I don't know. No social media before 16. See, if it becomes normal, and that's just accepted in society, then the kids will realize that's what it is. But if they're the only kid, then you got a problem on your hands. Are you with me? Chris, my kid's 15. I don't know if I'm not saying I can fix everything, but what I can say is, for all of us that are bringing them up into the system, what if we had different standards? And what if we talked about them all the time and openly? No social media before 16. I think the law now is, am I right, is it 13? And you can lie. You just go, I'm 14. And you're 11. That's it. Phone-free schools. There's one actionable thing that I think all of us could do. And we could, in every chance that we have, in every vote, in every conversation, in every vote that you get to cast for your schools, you talk to people and you say, I want completely phone-free schools. And be maniacal about it. That's what I want. That's what I'm for. Phone-free schools. I don't want them in our schools. I don't want adding this stress to our children. And advocate for it. Call people. Talk to the school board members. Fight for our kids. That chart is not good, my friends. At the very end came COVID. Now we're locking them away. I mean, God love you, whoever you were in that meeting that said these kids are going to learn online. I'm very cute of you. And I'm no educator, but very disconnected from reality. Talk to any parents like, well, I got 2 kids and I got 1 laptop, and it was absolute chaos, absolute stupidity. And we locked them away and stuck them up there, and now they got their front-facing phones, and all they did was spend their time online comparing themselves to other kids. And then when they had to, just like some of you have learned how to move your mouse when you're supposed to be working, they would put their eyeballs this far or their head in a hat to be in class. Meanwhile, their self-worth just cratering. Now, let's talk about what we know. These are really good kids. These are really good kids that are made in the image of God. That's what we know. They just got the wrong stuff coming in here. And we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to help keep the gates. So sometimes, I think when I give a message, it's not specific enough. And sometimes I think, well, if it's too specific, then, who are you to say 16 or whatever? It's not in the Bible. It's not the gospel. But let's start somewhere. Let me read them to you. No smartphones before high school. No social media before 16. Phone-free schools. Sometimes you have to get practical. You get right down and say, this stuff has to change. Get with other parents. Listen to me. You get with the parents of your kids' friends, if you know any of them, and you talk to them and say, let's make a deal. Let's make a pact. You got to meet where you are. Maybe they're already 15 and they already got this and they have, okay, but find some way. We're going to put our phones away at 10 o'clock at night, and that's going to be you put let's do it together. Pact, family pact, friend to friend, mom to mom, support. I know we got a battle on our hands. I'm aware. I'm battling a 6-year-old. Full-on war for an iPad. They know what they're doing. This stuff is highly addictive, chemically in your brain addictive. They know that. This is an absolute established scientific fact. There's no debating that anymore. It is an addictive substance. Guilty. All right? But I have a fully developed brain. Well, most people would say, as an adult. We have to protect them. Fair enough conversation? Made in the image of God. I never heard of things. I remember I was in youth ministry for years. I was with these kids in their struggles for years. And it was after I was out of youth ministry, I started hearing about kids cutting themselves. What in the world? It all goes back to the lie. All goes back to the lie, that serpent lying. And then the shame, and then the hiding, and then the obsessing with looking at self. Here's the last thing that I want to recommend, and I cannot recommend it enough. And this is going to sound very, of course he would say that answer. But I'm going to say it anyway. Get their rear ends to church. They don't like it. Some things, then make them pay their bills. Get their rear ends to church every time. I tell you, if I get the time, and I don't know how much time I'm going to have to do all the things that I want to do, but this is one of the things that I want to do because I'm so tired of it. They need to be in church for like a lot of reasons, social reasons. They need to be around adults. They need to be around older people. They need to be around old school teaching. They need to be around the Bible. They need to be around atmospheres of worship where something's bigger than them. They need it for 1,000 reasons. And if this isn't, then take them to another church. I don't care, but take them to church. Take them to church and make it an immovable mark in their life. And I'm going to tell you why. Where else are they going to get something transcendent for their life? Where else are they going to hear that you were made in the image of God? Where else are they going to hear about Christ's death on the cross, where he took on himself all of our sin, all of our shame, all of our guilt, so that we don't have to walk around with fig leaves, scared and afraid. Yes, I'm a sinner. Yes, but I'm still made in the image of God. Jesus took all of my shame, all of my guilt. They need to be in a right environment where they're hearing the right things, where all these other voices are finally put down. Philippians chapter 3 says this, Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Let's say it together. Ready? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. What if your kid learned that? What if that was their life motto? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. What if they learned from Ephesians chapter 1 that they were accepted and loved by God before the foundations of the world? What if they knew that? If you know that you are accepted by God and loved by God before the foundations of the world, you don't need any of these peons. God love you. No smartphones before high school. No social media before 16. Phone-free schools. Do what you can to help me. Do what you can to join the movement. If you don't even have kids, maybe your kids are already gone, still make a phone call. Let people know you're thinking about it. Let them know that you're going to take their place on the school board. Because you care about the kids.